Good evening. This is Paranormal Science Lab Live, and I'm Lisa. Jim and Susan had unexpected issues come up, are not joining us tonight, but that means I get our guest to myself. And I'm happy to say that one of our favorite guests, recurring guests on the show is back, Jason Offutt. Jason is a researcher. He's an author, becoming very prolific at that, in nonfiction and fiction. And he has a background in journalism and is a college professor. And the last I heard, you were experimenting with making beer. Is that right?
Yeah, my first. I used to brew beer quite a while ago. I took a 15-year hiatus and just started doing it again. And my very first batch was a batch of stout. I love stout, and it was terrible.
At least you can admit it, right?
Yeah, I'm going to try. Well, I drank it all. It took a while, but I drank it all. I'm going to try a pale ale next. I like pale ales quite a bit as well.
Well, you kind of get back in the swing of things, right?
Right. Yeah, I didn't expect to hit a home run first time.
Well, now you have a new book out.
Yes, it's quite a few years in the making. For the interviews we've had before, as a lot of your listeners probably already know, I've written a number of books on paranormal topics, ghosts, shadow people, UFOs, and all sorts of different paranormal topics. But I also write fiction. I have a novel out, a nerd romance novel called A Funeral Story. It came out a couple of years ago. But I've written horror for years. I love the horror genre. And although I haven't written a horror novel yet, I've written a ton of short stories. And this is what the book is. It's called Road Closed, and it's got 12 of my favorite short horror pieces.
And I can tell everyone out there that it's a great read. If you've read Jason before, he's got a good turn of word in his writing, and there's always some humor in there, even in horror. And I really enjoyed it. It was a great read. I guess first of all, why don't you do a shout out for where people can find the book?
Well, it's at Amazon. On Kindle, and it's as an ebook and as a paperback. You can also go to my website, www.jasonoffutt.com. That's JASONOFFUTT.com, and right on the front page there's a little box that you can just click a button and it'll take you right to the Amazon page for either of those. Okay,
and so. What made you decide to put the stories into a book?
Well, I had enough. I had enough of them.
That's a good start.
Well, yes. I love reading books of short stories, and there aren't enough out there. There aren't as many, published. People want to, write the novel. They don't want, even though they write short stories, there aren't a lot, and there aren't a lot of. I don't think publishing companies think there's enough of a market out there, although there is. And that's what did it. I wanted to get them. Some of them have been in magazines, and there's an award winner in there, and a couple of them are completely brand new. And I wanted to get them out there in front of people.
Well, and I think I think it's great, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there too. Though that I think there's more of a market for collections like this than traditional publishers are thinking, and this probably kind of goes back to more of the professor in you here, that people have shorter attention spans and they enjoy a shorter read too.
Right. They sure do. In fact, one of the people who bought my books bought a paperback copy and sent me an email saying that he was keeping it on the back of the toilet because that's where he does most of his reading, and short fiction's perfect for that. I have no problem at all.
Well, I just to be honest, the scene from Pulp Fiction. Was it Pulp Fiction where, it was Pulp Fiction where John Travolta gets killed coming out of the bathroom reading the book? Isn't it in Pulp?
It's this is embarrassing for me to say, but it's been more than 10 years since I watched that movie.
Yeah, it has been me too. It's a Tarantino film, but he gets killed coming out of the toilet reading a book, and so that scene came to mind when you said that. That's why I laughed.
Okay. Well, and one of the other reasons I wanted to get it out there is that usually, unless you're Stephen King, your book of short fiction doesn't get published unless you're dead.
True.
I didn't want to wait that long.
Well, sometimes, Jason, you like to push your limits, so it might not have been as long as you thought.
Okay, thanks.
Well, at least from what you say about your wife, sometimes in your posts online.
Oh, come on! No! I would never say anything bad about my wife. She's wonderful.
No, but that you push your limits at times, I'm sure.
Yeah, I do. But you know what? The thing is, I write a humor column. I've written a weekly humor column for quite a few years, and anytime I write about my wife, anything at all, anything that might be upsetting to her, I run it through her first.
Oh,
so
I know.
Anything that goes out in print about her, I'm not stupid.
And that's why you are still alive.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and that's true. I think a lot of people, as you said, they have that idea of the big novel or whatever, and just don't make that leap. And I think it's a really good time in publishing that there's a lot of options out there that have not been there before that can be experimented with, and people have an opportunity to get a readership that they never would have before.
Right. Yeah. Right now, for the publishing industry, there are so many books out there, but that's good.
It is good.
The more writing out there, the more writing people are exposed to, the better. I was just reading a piece on one of my writing heroes, H.P. Lovecraft, today, and at the time he was writing. I mean, maybe if he was writing today, nobody would notice him, but there were just a handful of people writing the type of fiction that he wrote at the time.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I wish I had that problem. But, there are so many people writing in the same genres out here. It's really, really, tough to get a hold, but also on the other hand, it's, we're reaching more people than ever before, so that's terrific.
Well, and in fact, everything that I've read recently is in the last couple of years that sales are up, that sales of e-books are up, and that actually, at least in some genres of physical copy books are up too. So it's actually a good sign that the market isn't as flooded as maybe we fear it is.
Right. Well, yeah, and you know what? The thing that was I shouldn't say fear, but the thing that was bothering me, I guess, is a few years ago, ebooks overtook print books on sales, and print books have made a comeback, and I didn't want to see the death of print because if you drop a book in the bathtub, you can just dry it out. If you drop your Kindle in there, you're in trouble. Yeah.
It better be in the cloud or you're in trouble, that's for sure. Because,
right.
And I don't know, the experience is very different, too. I would rather hold a book and read it. That's just me.
Right, and I teach, I teach college students, and, we've talked about this, because in one of my classes, I go through I teach an introductory class, and I talk about all the different types of mass medias, and I'm really happy when a lot of my students, when I'm talking about print, tell me that they would prefer holding a book.
That is great.
And holding a device. Yeah, I like that.
And, so that I think, that there are a lot of good signs, and there are some people who have even, done the self-publishing and done extremely well. So the chance, there's always those opportunities of rolling the dice. So, but I really enjoyed this. It's a departure from things that you've written before, at least published, and talk about the transition. Because you write humor so well, and there's that aspect in your horror that. How hard is it to get that chuckle in a horror book like that, in a horror story?
It's not really. Humor is, writing humor is second nature to me, and it's also a part of everyday life. And the part about horror is, sure, you're going to let the monsters out at some point.
Right.
But we still need to set things up as it's all character-based. It's based on humans. It's based on regular people, and regular people crack jokes. Mm-hmm. Regular people, are smartasses. Regular people might, pull the practical jokes on somebody or be sarcastic. That's normal. So, I try to put as much normalcy as I can in my horror fiction because that's life. Sometimes, the monsters are just life too, but anyway.
No, I agree, and I think that's why, to be honest, it flows so well. It's very, very natural. It's a natural scene as you read it, and it's very well done. What's your favorite story in the book?
Oh, wow. I've got a number for a number of different reasons. One you already alluded to, I'll bring up as being one of my favorites, is Matriarchal Nazi Cannibals.
I love that, by the way.
That's the short fiction goes from, I think my shortest one is called Teeth, and it's just a couple of pages. It goes from that to Matriarchal Nazi Cannibals is a full-blown novella. It's about 27,000 words long. It was a dream. I woke up one morning and I'd had the craziest dream, and it seemed really coherent. And I told my wife, and she's like, "Write that down, write that down right now, because that's a story." And I did, and it turned out to be really, really fun. It's a group of college students who are working on a project. They're film students working on a documentary. And they end up in a small Missouri town, and it just happens to be populated by descendants of Nazis who escaped Germany. So hilarity ensues from there.
Yes.
Especially with the cannibalism, yes.
Yes, it's and the tension builds early and very organically, and with a very unexpected twist.
Well, and the early and organically, I appreciate, because that's what I wanted. With short fiction, you don't have as much time as a novel. Like Stephen King's The Shining, for example.
Right.
He has the entire first half of the novels for building his characters and setting, and frankly, it's kind of boring. Mm-hmm. But after that point, and when he lets the demons out, then it's some of the best horror fiction ever.
Yes.
But with short fiction, you don't have that opportunity to spend all that time building. So, getting started early with the tension is important. And the fact that you said it was organic is it's a huge compliment, because for a fiction writer, if you're reading something and things don't flow well, there's not a natural progression to things, you notice it.
Oh yeah.
And it makes the story unbelievable. And even horror fiction needs to be believable. That's where the scary part comes in.
Yeah. It really, in some ways, it has to be more normal believability than most other genres in the beginning, and very early, you start dropping those hints that something is not what it seems, and just putting the main character on edge. And so by the time that you release the monsters, you're right there in it, and feeling the tension as well. And it was very, very well done. And if for no other reason, people ought to buy the book. Because, yes, Jason does a very good job of murdering Nazi cannibals, and there's some surprises in that story that are pretty wicked and very satisfying. So,
well, you keep saying I'm murdering them. I had someone ask me once which I liked better, writing fiction or writing nonfiction, and I said, well, writing fiction because in fiction when I kill somebody, how did I put this? I said in fiction, if somebody gets on my nerves, I can kill them. In nonfiction, people frown on that.
That's a good line. Well, you were killing fictional Nazis then.
Right, exactly.
We want to clarify.
Right, I don't want any knocks on the door tonight.
No, I don't want any calls from the FBI. So, well, give us another example of from the book that you find personally, that's close to your heart.
Well, I think one, and it's not. It's not horror. It's actually science fiction. I've always been huge on the science fiction genre. It's a story called When I Was Young, and it's a guy who he's going through relationship trouble, and he wants an out. He wants to go back to something in his childhood, or not childhood, but when he was in his college days. He wants to go back to something that feels safe.
Right.
Time travel has been invented, but it's now outlawed. But some of the people who invented it to begin with are selling it on the black market. And he buys into this, knowing that if he gets caught, he will go to jail for the rest of his life. But what he has back in the past to go get is so important to him. He goes back and gets it. And it's not lost love. It's not riches.
No.
He just had.
Are you there? Oh, we've had a little technical difficulty. We're going to try to get Jason back on the line.
Sounds like we got cut off.
Yeah, it did. It just dropped. Maybe our praise for Google phone was a
little bit premature. Maybe
you might pick up just a little bit before you were cut off about when you were talking about what he was going back for wasn't lost love, etc.
Okay, yeah, he wasn't going back for lost love, or he wasn't going back for riches. He wasn't going to buy stock in Microsoft or something of that nature. He was going back for a car, and I'm not giving away the ending because he was clear with that at the beginning of the story is what he really wanted. But to me it's a fun time travel story back to 1976. For a simple guy who just wants simple things.
Well, and it's a good blending of sort of just the everyday Joe kind of story and the sci-fi element, and I think it's a really good one too. So, but since you picked up on that one, we ought to throw out time travel is kind of something close to your heart, I think. In subjects.
Oh, right. Yes, absolutely. I've written a number of stories about time travel. I love writing time slip stories that I've gotten from a number of people. Some are fun, some are just creepy. Mike Markham, I know we talked about this guy before. He was on the Art Bell show back in the 90s, and I did a really nice story on him a few years ago for Nexus magazine, because I was able to track him down after he disappeared and nobody else could find him. He did claim to have invented a time machine, and then one day he just disappeared. I also own a time machine.
Oh, really?
Myself and a couple of professors from the chemistry and physics department at my university applied for a grant to buy a time machine, and it was approved, so we bought a time machine. And it doesn't work, but it we had fun trying it out.
Well, where exactly do you buy a time machine from?
Well, there's a guy. His name is Stephen L. Gibbs. He is from Nebraska. He lives in Kansas now, but he's from Nebraska, and he claims to have been approached by himself from a different dimension. And the guy gave him plans to build a time machine, and Gibbs built it and put a few twists on it of his own, and referred to it as a hyperdimensional resonator.
Oh, okay. Catchy.
He sells it. He's tried it, and he sells it online for a few $100s. And lots of people have purchased it and claim the thing works.
Wow.
One of the most interesting stories, there's, I can't remember her name. I'll have to look it up. A woman who wrote the story on him. She wrote a book on Stephen L. Gibbs. He brought the machine. She's from Nebraska. He brought the machine to her house to demonstrate it because she didn't know if she wanted to write up his story or not until she saw it work. And all it did was, sparks came out, and she said it looked like lightning danced around the chandelier. And they packed up the machine and went home. She didn't think anything of it, except the next time she watched her favorite movie, Shane, which she'd seen at least 20 times.
Yeah.
When she watched it this next time, it was different. Dialogue that she knew for a fact, because, again, her favorite movie, she'd seen it more than 20 times. Dialogue she knew one person spoke was coming out of another person's mouth.
Oh, yeah.
And this happened a number of times during the movie, so she's convinced that this right now, what we're living in right now, is an alternative dimension to the original one. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, I'm saying, and we're living in that alternative dimension. We don't notice anything because we weren't exposed to the to whatever field the hyperdimensional resonator had sped out. But since she was so close, she remembers how Shane was supposed to be.
Well, isn't this similar to what are they calling it, the Shazam effect or whatever, that people are remembering a movie that the comedian Sinbad was in? That
it's the Mandela effect.
Mandela, yeah.
Yeah, and that's named after. There are people who lots of people around the world who were convinced that Nelson Mandela died in prison, which he didn't. He got out of prison and was president of South Africa, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But lots of people were convinced that he died in prison. And how it's applied to the Sinbad movie, which isn't a movie, is there are a lot of people now who are convinced that they watched a movie back in the 90s called Shazam, where it starts Sinbad as a genie.
Right.
And which no movie of that was ever made. There was a similar movie called Kazam, starring Shaquille O'Neal, but people are just dead convinced that what they remember is true.
I've heard several stories of people who are convinced that movie took place, and I'm honest, I don't recall that, so I don't think I'm suffering from the Mandela effect, but I may be about something else and not realize it too. So
right, that might have been the entire dimension shift. Shane got screwed up, and so did the Sinbad movie. His career could have been completely different.
Well, when you were telling that, what was going through my mind was, well, if he was visited by an interdimensional being and given a time machine, wouldn't it have made more sense for the interdimensional being to give him a Stargate, in essence, to go to another dimension? But
well, Right. I don't know, or a copy of the right movie. I don't know.
Well, maybe that's the key. Maybe there's subliminal programming in this thing. So
maybe.
I'm not sure that kids today really get the concept of subliminal images in the digital age, but I'm sure it still happens.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things that I lecture about is advertising and give the history of subliminal advertising and the fact that we were brainwashed to believe it works, and it doesn't.
Mm-mm. No, I mean, I guess maybe they could create, certain conditions where someone might be susceptible, but it's pretty laughable, really. I don't think we're going to end up with a Manchurian Candidate type situation off of it. That's for sure.
Right. Well, because Frank Sinatra's not alive anymore.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, although he might be in another dimension.
He could be. That would be nice. I love old blue eyes.
Exactly. And I have to admit that more and more things that seem to be coming out with quantum physics actually make the interdimensional travel and multiverse theories more interesting, at least. I sometimes, I wonder if that's more plausible than time travel.
Well, maybe. I mean, and the thing about quantum physics is again, I'm working at a university, teaching here. It's really nice because I get to hang out with people, like scientists. Mm-hmm. The physicists that I've hung out with have they appreciate quantum mechanics, but it's math. Mm-hmm. I mean that's cool, but it's all mathematical, and it's there's no quantifiable evidence to support it. It's just on paper, and until it's more than just on paper, that it's just nice theories.
Exactly. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if you saw the article, but one of the scientists working on the Large Collider in Europe came out and said that he that because they've had the particles transport in the collider that it proves that ghosts cannot exist.
Right, which I saw one when I was 5 years old, so I call BS on that.
Yeah, I've seen a couple myself, and of course my thought was, well, what was it, 2 or 3 years ago they shut it down because they were afraid they were going to create a black hole and destroy the Earth too, so...
So I'm really glad they turned it back on. That was awesome of them.
Yeah, but if we're at that stage of understanding what's going on in the collider, I'm not sure how it translates to there are no such things as ghosts. So.
But I thought that was odd.
But it just seems like we keep coming up with these ideas that this just disproves the supernatural and really what a lot of what they're coming up with seems to me makes it more plausible. I mean, if every point in time it exists simultaneously, then I would think that would make the idea of ghosts more plausible.
Right, or the ghosts that we're seeing just from bleed-overs from a different point in time that are just,
right.
In a thin spot.
And that's kind of my theory, is that points of time kind of come closer, and we get a view of each other that way. Whoops, we lost that call again. Let me get him back on the line.
Okay, so do we need to finish this on my cell phone?
Well, I think maybe we can give it a shot, unless you want to call back on your cell phone. I can't access your number with my software running right now.
Okay.
Why don't we just go on, and if we lose it, then go ahead. Okay. Are you there?
We gotta get going to that place.
I'm getting 1,000 credits for myself. They don't actually sell. Oh, yeah.
You've reached.
Okay, give us just a minute. We're going to try and get you back on the line here. Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, we got it.
All right. So Google Voice, where you're going?
Either that or we were stumbling on some sort of secret information that we're not supposed to know about.
Ooh, I'm going with that.
Well, yeah, and and who better to know than Google, yeah.
Exactly.
I'm not sure where we were at now talking, but
Just pick up from anywhere. We were leaving off the Large Hadron Collider.
oh yeah, that's true. And whether or not they're going to destroy Earth or prove that ghosts don't exist. So,
All right, they might have destroyed Earth already. We just don't know about it.
well, that's true, especially if we're in the Mandela effect. So,
Right.
we're getting in a crazy loop here that either could be reality or you and I end up in an insane asylum, one of the two.
No, I've been trying to do that for years.
They won't let you in, huh?
No.
Well, three squares and a cot, and you don't even have to work,
Don't I know. It sounds perfect.
What have you got on the horizon?
Well, I'm in a number of different things. I've written a young adult fantasy novel.
I know you were working on that, yeah.
Right, and it's finished and it's going through its last edit, and I'm working on trying to market it right now.
Very cool.
After that, I actually got a couple of ideas for a couple of humor books, some novelty type books. So I'm going to be working on them as well. I don't want to be somebody who's pegged into one certain thing. I have very eclectic taste, and I just want to do it all.
I really don't see that happening. I really don't with the variety of things you've done. Speaking of a novelty type book, let's plug your monster book.
Oh, right, yeah. I have an ebook. It's called How to Kill Monsters Using Common Household Items. The basic premise is you're at home, a monster breaks into your house. What do you have lying around to kill it? And I have chapters on killer robots from the future, vampires, werewolves, demonic clowns, because they're all evil. Your evil twin.
Hey,
and then the very last chapter is the legalities. If you get arrested for killing Seth Green because you thought he was a werewolf. I'm sorry.
Oops. Well, the demonic clown one might come in handy for people because I noticed last day or two that clown sightings have started again.
Right, I know, and they're asking for it, actually.
Yeah, I know when they started, it was hinted that maybe it was a promotion for the remake of the movie It, but,
Well, there were some in Green Bay, Wisconsin, a couple of years ago, I think, and it was promotion for a movie, but then the ones that appeared in the South were, didn't have any connection whatsoever. And, I thought that was the stupidest place to go in the South. Who has more guns?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And, it just made me think of Deliverance. I'm sorry
Right.
that you're just asking for trouble. And
Wow, that's a skit on a skit comedy show that I can see.
we may have to collaborate on that.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, it just it also reminds me when they did the Olympics in Atlanta. I don't even remember which year it was, and Jeff Foxworthy was one of the commentators, MCs, and they were talking about the kayaking event, and they were doing it on the river that the movie was filmed on.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
And his line was that he is, if Ned Beatty couldn't get up that river, then some Frenchman in
Bicycle short can't. Yeah, I
you
remember
know.
that.
And that line just kept coming to mind when the clown incidents kept coming up, that they were just asking for trouble. And I don't remember where the one a couple of days ago was. I want to say Ohio or somewhere, something like that.
I don't know. Clowns scare the hell out of me, so I tend to stay away from those stories.
Yeah, I've never really seen the appeal in clowns. They really didn't frighten me, but I just thought they were creepy. A friend of my son's growing up, he was deathly afraid of them, and we were at a spook house once, and the kids must have been about 10, and this clown with yellow eyes steps out, and he just freaked, and I thought we were going to end up having to take him to the hospital hyperventilating. So
This has been about probably 6 or 7 years ago, but I read a story about a hospital in England that they wanted to decorate the children's ward to make it, friendlier and happier for kids. So they put a lot of clown pictures on the walls. Scared the crap out of every one of those children. They had to just revamp the whole thing.
Oh. If being sick wasn't bad enough.
Right.
Well, another thing, kind of the, creepy clown is related to dolls. I mean, I think dolls creep me out big time, always have.
Yeah, they really should, because they are creepy. This is, been 6, 7 years ago. I taught a class called Paranormal Journalism, and I took my students to the Villisca Axe Murder House.
Hey, that's a field trip.
Yeah, it was the best field trip ever. And one of my students, about a week before we went, told me a story about a dream she'd had. There was this Raggedy Andy or Raggedy Ann type doll that was on one of the beds. And for those of the listeners who are familiar with this, in 1912, a family went to, I can't remember the names. It'll come to me.
Yeah, I just went blank too.
Right. The family went to a church picnic in July, and decided to, take a couple of neighbor kids home with them. Kids still wanted to play, so they all went home and played some more, and then, everybody went to bed for the night. Nobody knew that there was a guy with an axe waiting in the attic, waiting for the people to go to sleep. And when they went to sleep, the guy came down with the axe and killed everybody in the house. Well, okay, it's a show house now for paranormal investigators, and it's creepy, and some creepy things happen there, but that's just prefacing the doll. My student told me that she saw this Raggedy Ann doll on the bed of one of the kids upstairs. Specifically, one of the kids' beds upstairs, and it was a Raggedy Ann doll. We all get there. There's a group who stays downstairs and a group who goes upstairs. This girl is one of the girls who goes upstairs. And we're down, and all of a sudden, I hear a piercing scream. And I run into the room with the stairs that go up, and she is pounding down those small stairs as fast as she possibly can.
Oh, no.
And she said, she's panicked. She's like, Jason, it's there. The doll is on the bed. And I go up there, and the doll that she had seen in her dream was on the bed that she had seen in her dream.
Oh, wow.
I laughed out. In the dream, it turned its head toward her and smiled. It didn't do that in real life.
Thank goodness.
Yes. But the dolls, yeah, that's just, that whole story was just to agree with you that dolls are creepy.
Oh yeah, and I know you've been to the Kendrick House in Carthage, and
Right, yeah.
and do you recall the doll there in the cradle?
That's been too many years ago, I really don't.
Yeah, there's a creepy porcelain doll there in a cradle, and have actually had it where you walk in the room, walk out, walk back in, and it's in a different position. No one's been in there, and in ways that couldn't be explained by it shifting or something. So yeah, that's always kind of creepy. I remember we investigated one place where it was an old man, basically an old mansion, and the family had been collectors, and they had like 1,000 doll heads in different cabinets. You'd walk around a cabinet and have 300 just porcelain doll heads everywhere. That was pretty creepy.
There's an island somewhere that's
Italy.
full of those.
Mm-hmm. Italy, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember where. It's terrifying.
But of course, the theory being that that spirits can use them as vessels. I'm not sure, not sure why they're particularly attracted to a vessel, but I guess perhaps like a vampire wanting to animate a living body again or something. I'm not sure, but what we're talking about, what is the way to kill a demonic clown in case we run into one?
Well, one of the ways that I mentioned is to be prepared for demonic clowns invading your home is to get your regular tin pie plate and some quickcrete, which is quick setting concrete, and make a lot of pies, make a lot of concrete pies, even paint a cherry on top. Whenever a demonic clown bursts into your house, they cannot resist being hit in the face with a pie.
There you go.
If the pie is made out of concrete, there's your clown problem taken care of right there. I even have the average price of what a bag of quickcrete should cost, so it won't set back much.
And one bag of quickcrete will make a lot of concrete pies.
Right.
That's great. Now we claim no liability if someone throws a concrete pie at a clown in the woods somewhere.
Well, right. The woods are an issue, but if they're in your house, we've got the castle doctrine to protect you.
That's right.
Yeah.
So just wait till they're over the threshold.
Exactly.
And make sure they fall inward, not outward. Then you're safe. We are horrible, you know that.
Unless there are a lot of dogs in the neighborhood.
Well, they could take care of your problem anyway,
Exactly. Yeah.
Just save your concrete for that flower planter you need. Oh boy. What else are you up to lately?
It's getting ready for spring break. That's the great part for for a college teacher. Spring break. That just means you get caught up in your grading.
Yeah. That's just more work, though.
Right. But college teaching is a great job. The teaching part. I mean, I love teaching somebody something and seeing the light going on their head. I mean, it's terrific.
I think it would be, yeah.
And then I have students like I had a student in class the other day. And I gave them an assignment to do in class, and they asked if they had to type it or if they could write it. And I said, your handwriting's okay. You can handwrite it. And one student in the front row, she took her notebook, put it on her laptop, and hand wrote it using her laptop as a drawing or as a writing board.
Oh, wow.
I thought that was absolutely hilarious.
That is. I love it. The ironies abound there. We were talking about this a while back. I know another subject that is kind of high interest for you are monsters. Well, we talked about monsters, but creatures, mythical creatures, supernatural creatures, and we're both from Missouri, what is your favorite creature that's supposed to be native to our parts of the woods?
Oh, wow. The creatures, I mean, I'd have to go with, I mean, Momo's the most famous.
Mm-hmm.
Momo, the Missouri Monster, who terrorized the area around Louisiana, Missouri back in the early 70s. It basically a Bigfoot. One of the three-toed varieties. There are a surprising number of those across the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Which the behavior is a little bit different than the other big feet. That one, the case in the late 60s of space penguins.
Space
There was,
penguins. Okay, I haven't heard this one.
This happened on Valentine's Day, and a farmer saw a green mushroom, a giant green mushroom made out of metal, and there's creatures that came out of it, and he described them as 3 foot tall, waddling green penguins with big black eyes. And he did what I guess any guy would do. He picked up a rock and threw it at him, threw it at the penguins.
Yeah.
And it hit what he described was like a force shield from Star Trek. It hit and bounced off, and they got back in the ship and back in the mushroom ship and left. But, you don't hear of space penguins very often.
No, you don't. And it makes you wonder: was it a suit or what, or were they just little green Martians? I'm not sure, but
I don't know. I mean, it was a penguin description. I've heard of, I've interviewed people who've seen greys and Nordics and
reptilian,
all sorts of types,
yeah.
but not penguins.
No, and that I have to admit that's one I have not heard before. I think we talked about this a few months ago. Apparently, there's a rash of stories of supposedly a flying humanoid in southern Missouri.
Right, I remember that, but I don't know very much about it. I just remember a story from where I grew up, which is close to the Kansas City area, of a flying humanoid being seen, but it was a brief encounter back in the late 60s, and I heard nothing else about it, so not putting a whole lot of credence in it.
No, I mean, of course, you have things like the Jersey Devil and the Mothman and everything, and so it just seems to kind of fit into that ilk of story. And I've almost wondered if those kind of stories, like Mothman and Jersey Devil and so forth, kind of, I don't know, is sort of an ancestral thing, almost like dragons and so forth.
Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, stories like that are worldwide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are Mothman type creatures and Jersey Devil, type creatures seen everywhere. So, yeah, maybe so. Maybe it's like, the lake monster stories. I mean, really, are these lake monsters actually all in all these lakes, like, Champ and Ogopogo and all the other minor ones that are across the U.S.? I mean, are they actually there? Or are they just, legend that's been handed down for centuries?
Exactly. I mean, I think that, the legends that seem to ring the truest for me are a lot of the Bigfoot legends, simply for the narratives of Native Americans and then the indigenous peoples in the Himalayas too, seem to be so almost universal.
Well, I will completely agree with you, but you're not going far enough, because it's not just North America. I mean, England has stories of the hairy wild men. Those stories are rife throughout the rest of Europe, and of course we've got the Almas and the Almasties of Russia, and the Orang Pindak of Sumatra, oh my gosh, the China one, the one in China. What is
Oh,
Chinese
yeah.
Bigfoot?
Yeah. I don't remember the name that they call it, though, yeah.
It'll come to mind, and then of course we've got the Yowie from Australia. So I mean, these things are literally have been seen on every continent for century upon century upon century. There's the native legend of these things all across the globe, except of course Antarctica, but on every continent. So why not take that evidence as evidence? And it's the same with me with ghosts. Every single civilization on Earth that we have any record of whatsoever had ghosts in its belief system. Mm-hmm. That tells me something.
Well, yeah, and I don't know why this just popped in my head now, but it's one of those quirky little questions that people ask, and I guess it maybe kind of could tie into time travel issues as well. Is people talk about, well, why do we always see ghosts or apparitions dressed in the past? Why don't we have ghosts, contemporary ghosts, dressed like you and I right now type thing? And of course there are certainly ghost stories like that. But why it seems to always be, a Civil War soldier or, someone from hundreds of years ago in a castle, that kind of thing. I know I kind of have a theory.
Are we seeing some kind of a time slip? Because I interviewed somebody who saw a group of Union soldiers marching through the woods. They were out deer hunting, and they saw these Union soldiers marching through the woods. Mm-hmm. They heard them. They heard them talk. They heard them tramping around. They heard their gear making noise, clanking as they walked, and then they just kind of faded off and disappeared. Were those ghosts, or was that part of the past that they actually saw happen?
Exactly, and I've thought too. Okay, even if you play devil's advocate, and it's not more of a physics-based answer like a time slip, if they are human spirits lingering, I've thought, well, the longer they're around, the more likely they'll figure out how to manipulate energy as well. If that's your belief that it's all human spirits lingering, but I think one of the most interesting that our team had happened to us. We were investigating a home over in Kansas, and the owner her family had owned it for 30 or 40 years, and she'd gone to school there and everything. And a couple of our investigators had stepped outside and smoked cigarettes and standing on the sidewalk, and a car pulls up and parks at the end of the block, and the driver gets out and walks into the house. And then a minute or two later, they see someone get out of the other side and come up the sidewalk towards the house and stops and just kind of stares at the house. And they both commented that he looked very normal, a young man, 18 or 20, but he was dressed in like a 1980s windbreaker suit, and his shoes looked like from the 80s and so forth, his haircut, everything. But he just stood there for a while, and one of them said, can I help you? And he said, does Mr., and he gives the name, actually the father of the owner, does he still live here? And, she said, oh, I'm sorry, he's passed on. And he goes, I'm sorry, he was always so nice, and turns around and keeps walking down the sidewalk, and about 50 yards down disappears. And they come in and describe it, and the owner said that their description was of a kid that she went to school with who had lived like 2 or 3 houses down and was killed in high school in a car wreck. And she went and got her yearbook and showed the picture, and they both swore, that blood drained from their face, so that was who it was. But, if it's time slip or whatever it is, I think it can happen in a short period as well as 100 years ago.
Right. Yeah, there was the building where I worked. There was a student who died in the early 90s in a car accident, and he was a photographer for the yearbook. And although he died states away, I mean, the yearbook was what he loved.
Mm-hmm.
And after he passed, because I interviewed people from back then, and they would feel a presence in the dark room with them, even though they knew they were alone. They could feel that somebody was there with them in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the years, people have reported saying a dark-haired college student wearing a blue flannel shirt, places in the building, and he would, quickly, walk around a corner and be gone. 2 years ago, it was one Sunday, I got a call from a student freaking out because she was working at the radio station, and she'd seen a person in the hallway, and she didn't think much of it, even though it was a Sunday and nobody should be there. She didn't see who it was. He just, walked around in a corner. She saw the same type of thing later, and it kind of bugged her. But then when she went back to her, the radio booth, there's a big plate glass window on the other side of the booth, and she saw this guy, dark hair, blue flannel shirt,
Wow.
staring into the radio studio where she was about to walk into, and she storms around the corner to yell at him and tell him to get out of there because she didn't know him,
Right.
and he was gone. And then she asked me, she's like, what could that be? And I told her where the old yearbooks were kept. And I told her to go to 1991 and look at a certain, the yearbook, look at the yearbook group picture. And I gave her the name to look for.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes back and she's like, that was the guy.
Yeah.
That was who I saw looking at me. So, I mean, ghost, yeah, that's probably what I'd call him, just because of what happened. But there was something there. She was freaked out.
Well, and that's how this experience was, because these were two experienced investigators who've been doing it for years, and really, they said, other than the fact that he looked like he was wearing clothes from the 80s. They thought it was a real kid, and then literally watched him disappear. And like you said, this kid didn't, died states away or whatever. But and that's one thing too. They don't seem to hang out at where they died necessarily, or graveyards, that kind of thing. They seem to be.
I want to. It's boring there.
Well, yeah. I mean. Why won't go somewhere nice, someplace that was pleasant, or I mean, I think I think
or Belize or someplace. That's where I'd go hang out if I was dead.
Yeah, or a nice resort, in the tropics or something.
Right.
Go somewhere I couldn't afford to go when I was living. Go tour Europe.
Right.
And. But, I think that, there's just so many things out there that we don't have that explanation yet. Just like, are we going to blow up the Earth with a black hole with the collider? But we want to dismiss so many things that thousands and thousands of people experience on a routine basis. That
Right, and I've said for years that of all of the evidence that we have of Bigfoot, I mean, all of the eyewitness sightings, all of the the plaster cast, that there have been police experts who have said this is a footprint from a real thing.
mm-hmm.
All of this it would be enough to convict somebody in court of murder.
That's very true. That's very true. I mean,
but yes, but since it's such, since it's of a creature that science doesn't agree with yet. It's dismissed offhand, which is sad.
What do you think of that new show, Killing Bigfoot?
I don't have cable TV.
Oh,
We spend our money on having internet access, and we have Netflix. So
there you go. Well, I don't know if you've heard about it, but they've had some shows on for several years, like Finding Bigfoot and so forth. And this is another team. I think they're out of the Gulf Coast, and their aim is we're going to take down a specimen, and they're trying to approach it like they're like hunting. We want to take down a mature male, and no females, no juveniles, etc., on the premise that until we have a body, no one's going to believe that they exist. And then once we kill one, then we'll be able to use that to then protect Bigfoot from being hunted to death, I guess.
I am behind that 100%. I'm anything. Okay, and this. I hope I don't step on your toes.
Nah.
But any evidence collected by people out hunting for ghosts, Bigfoot, dogman, whatever. Any evidence collected, unless it's collected by a PhD, and categorized by a PhD, nobody's going to believe it. I've heard some EVPs that are convincing as hell. And I was in the room when they were recorded. Okay, so I know that there wasn't any noise. I know that there wasn't anybody talking. I know there wasn't a kid singing, but it came up on the recording. That evidence for science is nothing.
Yeah, not unless you can record it in a lab under controlled circumstances. Yeah,
that's exactly what I was going to say. It's got to be controlled circumstances, and it has to be repeatable. And you know what? None of this stuff's repeatable. So until science is able to develop something like the Ghostbusters had, and be able to trap a ghost in a magnetic field, and until you shoot a Bigfoot in the face or trap a thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger, until you're able to do that stuff, it's all going to be, fringe paranormal. It's not going to be mainstream science. So, shoot one Bigfoot, kill it. You know what? If that's what it takes, that's what it takes. Because these creatures are apparently intelligent, and I feel terrible saying that, but in order to make science believe it, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, somehow you're going to have a specimen, and sure, if they could trap it or somehow tranquilize it and do it, that's even better. But that's the premise that they're using, and part of me, and I'm like you, part of me, I hate to say that because if these creatures exist, they are intelligent, and you hate to do that. But on the other hand, do you sacrifice one and hopefully protect a species and encourage research? It's not an easy question, but I don't know what else realistically is the answer.
Well, right, but and in my book, How to Kill Monsters Using Common Household Items, I also have the premise in a chapter. What if Bigfoot broke into your house? We don't want to kill Bigfoot because we don't want to prove Bigfoot exists, because if Bigfoot is as intelligent as it probably is, they're going to make it on TV, and you know who's going to feel sorry for Bigfoot? Everybody is.
Yep.
Okay, they're going to take our jobs.
It won't be robots, it'll be Bigfoot.
It'll be Bigfoot.
That's true. Well, I don't know, that might put Bigfoot in more danger. So maybe they should stay hiding.
I can imagine Bigfoot, working the fryer at McDonald's. You know how he can catch it all the hair on fire? What kind of hairnet would Bigfoot have to wear? If he was cooking fast food?
Bubble wrap.
Enormous.
Oh my! But that's exactly true. I mean, and there's some heated discussion right now about that show and whether it's promoting recklessness, that kind of thing. But I don't see a real alternative if you want to really prove that they exist. So.
But you know what? What if it should have happened by now? Seriously, because every story that I've ever researched about famous Bigfoot encounters, whenever the Bigfoot has been encountered, there's been in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, posses have been organized, and hundreds of people with guns have hundreds of rednecks with guns have tramped out in the woods, and they've never found anything.
Well, of course, they never found D.B. Cooper either, so.
That's a good point. But the thing is, I'm not sure. Gosh, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Of course, now there's a lot of theories that that they are interdimensional beings or time travelers, etc. So maybe they're slipping in that time slip and getting away. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's also one of those things that we're throwing something that we don't, an unknown, time slips. Those are unknown. We're using that to explain Bigfoot, which is another unknown.
Exactly, it's a double negative.
I don't think we're doing ourselves any favors by thinking that way.
No, I don't. I mean, there are some personal accounts of people who've encountered Bigfoot who talk about feeling like there's telepathy going on and that kind of thing, and I'm kind of jury's out on that one as far as I'm concerned. I haven't had that experience. I haven't had a Bigfoot encounter, but it just seems that that certain elements are trying to elevate the theory of Bigfoot beyond a crypto to either supernatural or an ET, etc. That
well, right, and I was just going to bring ET up because even since the late '60s and the '70s, that there have been lots of reports of Bigfoot encounters coinciding with UFO encounters.
Right.
And that's just another another thing to throw in.
Well, and that's the thing. I guess maybe if it is something interdimensional, that might make sense. But again, I think you got to prove they exist first before you can figure out what planet they come from. So, and I just. But I think if there's a creature that possibly does exist, I think that is one of the most likely. You brought up the Tasmanian tiger. I did see a story recently that they're having sightings again, so I guess that's possible. But again, that's a lot different than Bigfoot, too.
Right, because that was a known creature that disappeared, but you know what, then the coelacanth was as well.
Right, and the gorilla, there was which gorilla in Africa was known with the silverback.
Right, the mountain gorilla was known, of course, by the natives who were around the area, the people who lived there. Mm-hmm. They knew him, and they told about the mountain gorilla to the Westerners, and we thought that it was fantasy. And then we didn't discover the mountain gorilla until the early 1900s. Right. Another one, which is more modern, is the billy ape found in the Billy Forest in, I believe, is it the Congo? Oh. Which is an upright walking, enormous chimpanzee-like ape that exhibits gorilla behavior.
Oh wow!
So that's something we have actual evidence about. It's relatively, given it's something that big, it's a relatively new find.
Well, yeah, and again, when you compare the kind of terrain in the Congo, with jungle and so forth, to some of the more remote areas that you have Bigfoot encounters, say the Pacific Northwest, etc., or a lot of swampy land, maybe there's something there that something could be living in plain sight, so to speak, that we just aren't out there enough to encounter if they're intent at hiding,
Right, and people are like, if Bigfoot existed in the United States, we've been all over this place. We would have seen it. So there are patches of forest that people, haven't been to, or at least if they have, they've, it's been, very rare over hundreds of years. So there's plenty of places for a large mammal to hide, and going to bigger expanses like Cameroon and Localia Momembe sightings, which is, which could possibly be a living Apatosaurus. We don't know. It's too wild, and not a lot of Westerns have ever been in there, but the natives, the people who always live there, swear that this thing exists. We don't know. They do.
Well,
we just don't listen. We don't listen.
Exactly, and it kind of goes back to all these subjects, ghosts, etc. That as we've become more fact based and we hope scientifically inclined, we just tend to reject what our ancestors already knew and ignore things and in the sake of science, and a lot of times that's a good thing, but on the other hand, you can throw the baby out with the bathwater and just ignore things that are there and have been known for thousands of years.
Right, yeah, absolutely. There was, oh my gosh, I don't remember what this was a cure for, but I remember reading recently that a person discovered a cure for something that we didn't have a cure for, but it was from a manuscript that was like 600 years old.
I think I read something about that. Basically we were just rediscovering what we used to know, and
right. But those people were ignorant,
of course, and that's something that we tend to do is consider ourselves more sophisticated, etc. And really there's no difference between us and our ancestors going back tens of thousands of years, except for different technological improvements that we've made. So I think if somehow we can get past our own vanity and egos, we might be able to figure out some of these these mysteries.
Right. I doubt it.
Well, yeah, not anytime soon, I don't think. Oh, Jason, I've really enjoyed this. We're coming down to the end, and I want to encourage everybody. We've talked about a variety of things, and that's one thing that, check out Jason's books, because he's written about a lot of different things, and you're going to find a lot of interesting books to read, and I highly recommend them all. But his new one, Road Closed, is a good read. I really, really enjoyed it. Highly recommend it, especially if you enjoy horror. And to be honest, I hope you write some more and get out there some more horror, because it was great. And why don't you plug again where they can find your books and contact you if they have questions or want to communicate?
Well, all of my books are available at two different places. One, they're all on Amazon. You can go to Amazon.com, just type in Jason Offutt in the search bar, JASONOFFUTT, and they're all on my website, which is www.jasonoffutt.com. I've got a menu called a link on my menu called Books, and it leads you to all of my books. My paranormal books, my book of short horror, World Closed, my novel, my travel log, and my parody book on how to kill monsters, all there. So if you need to get hold of me, I've got there's a way to contact me. Send me an email, or I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. Like me, or don't like me, just click like me.
Just click follow. Just click follow.
I'm just lots of different places, so I'd love to hear from you.
Well, and that's one thing I can tell people, that Jason's accessible and just a phenomenal writer. You really are one of my favorite writers, and
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And we always enjoy having you on, and as soon as you have a new adventure, we're going to have you back on again. So thank you so much for coming on tonight, Jason.
Well, thanks for having me on again. It's always a pleasure. I always have a great time on your show.
Well, thank you very much. And everyone listening, we appreciate, and head on over to Amazon or Jason's site. Check out check out his books, order some, and enjoy yourself, and you'll appreciate it and have a good laugh with a lot of them. So we appreciate listening, and we will be back next week. Thank you all, and thank you, Jason.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.